Sorry ahead of time for any format issues. I'm posting this on a cell phone. So for context, I'm a 22-year-old male, and I live in a large city in the Midwest. Now, I drive Lyft while putting myself through trade school. I drive for other similar companies, but that's besides the point. I have many horror stories from all those as well, but I'll tell those another time. It was Christmas Eve 2020. I was out running Lyft for a few hours before heading to my mum's with my new baby and wife. Nothing special going on for the night, just the usual. I get a ride request. It was a pickup from this kinda lower income apartment complex. No big deal. I arrive and I find my passenger. He has all his belongings, several boxes and stuff. Now my car is a 2006 Chevy Impala, so it's not too big. We get all his stuff loaded up, barely, and on our way. During the ride, he's crying, saying that his girlfriend was cheating on him, and he had walked in on them earlier that night. He couldn't stay there because it was her name on the lease. So I was taking him to a hotel. Now in my city, we have a street that is known for having vices, hookers, drugs, gangs, weapons, and shady motels, the works. We get to the motel, and he asked me to wait for him to check in and get his key. No problem, man, I say. I'll confess, I break the rules a little when it comes to Lyft. I have a gun hidden in a concealed holster secured to the underside of my driver's seat for protection. Reason being, driving Lyft and other contract apps, I've had knives and guns pulled on me, as well as people who've tried to fight me, rob me, and all kinds of other things. But like I said, another time. This motel was on a street I mentioned before. Homeless people were everywhere. There was a dude on the far corner of the complex that still had a needle in his arm, passed out against a building. I'm a big fan of true crime and horror narration, so I'm on edge. He gets his key. The whole motel is ground level, so to help the guy out, I drive to his door. As I mentioned before, he has a lot of stuff, so I started helping unload his stuff. While on my second trip of getting stuff, I saw a guy come out of a room just to the south of my car, followed by two ladies. They came up to the room I was next to, not my passenger. One of the ladies pounded on the door, then opened it. That's when I saw a guy raise a shotgun up out of his long coat and storm into the room. The two ladies followed him, slamming the door behind them. Following, I heard a lot of yelling and shouting. I was just waiting for shots to ring out. Out of nowhere, my passenger came up behind me. "I can take this, man. Go ahead and take off. Have a Merry Christmas." And he gave me a cash tip. I didn't even notice he took boxes out of my hands or slid a $5 bill into my pocket. I knew what may have been going on down in that room. I had to leave, or at least get to where I could get my gun. I know the guy and the ladies saw me, and I know they knew I saw the gun. I had to get out of there. No witnesses. I got in my car and sped away quickly. I got a block or so away and called the cops. I handed them every detail. After I got off the phone with the police, I signed out a Lyft. I hadn't made much money, but I was done. I got a call later that night. The cops investigated. They never found the gunman or the woman. They never answered the door I saw them come out of. And the occupants of the room they went into said nothing happened, and that I was full of shit. Well, I know what I saw. So back in November 2020, I was in and out of hospital with testicular torsion 8 times altogether, because why permanently fix a medical issue when you can temporarily fix it, I guess. And on my last time at one of the hospitals, I called a taxi to go home, but it would take about 30 to 40 minutes to get to me because it was a Saturday in the city. Since there was going to be a bit of a wait, I decided to sit down in a garden/bench area in front of the hospital. It was 3 AM, about 0 degrees Celsius, and I had been awake for 36 hours at that point. My taxi was on its way, and I just sat cross-legged on the bench, headphones on and nicotine keeping me alive. Everything was fine until after 10 minutes. I noticed a guy very clearly walking directly towards me. He was stumbling a bit, so I assumed he was drunk, and he got level with me. He stopped right in front of me and said something that I didn't hear. I looked up and said, "What?" "Sorry, I had music on." As I pulled them off, he looked at me dead in the eye and just said, "I could effing batter you right now." Of everything I was expecting him to say, that wasn't on the list. So, caught off guard, I tried disarming him with humour by saying, "I don't doubt it," which did work, thank God, because he would have absolutely pulled me into the ground. And every time I said something similar, he'd just say, "I could batter you. I want to deck you right here, right now. And I could take you in a fight," just to recall a few of them. After his anger toned down, he sat on the bench next to me and started generally drunk rambling about his family and his friends, and very specifically, his best friend's girlfriend that he was having an affair with. Then he pointed out my shoes, saying, "Those are nice, mate. Can I have them?" Obviously, I said no firmly, but not aggressively. Then said thanks and told him about the fact that I've got them on the sale. He said, "Can I touch them?" which was immediately a big red flag. I politely declined, and he started rubbing my shoe anyway. I was still sitting cross-legged on the bench. Then, in one swift movement, he grabbed my ankle, pulled my entire leg up to his face, and put the entire toe of my size 11 Converses in his mouth. At which point, while sitting in stunned silence, I started desperately looking around, and I could see the hospital police walking over. The officer asked if we were here together. He said yes. I said no. The officer then asked if he was a patient. I said yes. He said no. I told the officer I was just waiting for my taxi, and the guy rambled something I couldn't really make out to the officer, who suggested he move along. The guy stood up, gave me a handshake, and walked off into the night. The officer obviously asked if I was okay, and I told him what happened. He was just as confused as I was. After that, my taxi was due in 5 minutes, so I went and stood on the opposite side of the hospital to where the taxi rank was. I asked some friends who are familiar with a lot of drugs and what he could have been on, and they all unanimously said meth, and the shoe thing was probably just a fetish. Random shoe butter outside the hospital. Let's never meet again. This took place around the corner from my house when I was about 7 to 10 years old. There was a food place around the corner, and I'd run around to get their milkshakes every now and then. One day, my parents left to go out somewhere just as the sun was about to set. I called my mum to tell her I'd be leaving around the corner, and she said it was fine. The previous day, I'd gotten a deep bruise on my arm from school, and I was wearing a t-shirt that day as it was just turning summer. I didn't know how to tie shoelaces back then, so I just thought I'd leave them untied for the moment. I was walking around the corner when a tall, tired-looking man in his 40s to late 50s came up to me and asked to tie my laces. I assumed that he was Indian from what I could tell at the time. He spoke with an accent, and I think maybe English wasn't his first language. I thought it was strange, but I let him, not knowing any better. After he was finished, he stared at me for a moment. He looked at the bruise on my arm, grabbed my arm and examined it. "Oh no, you need a bandage. Come with me and we'll find your parents." Hearing this and becoming uncomfortable, my shy young self mumbled, "It's fine." He pulled out his phone and brought up pictures of his son while still grabbing onto me. I was becoming increasingly freaked out, especially because I was very introverted when I was young. "This is my son. You can trust me," he said. At that point, I knew something didn't feel right. I had a feeling that I had to leave as soon as possible. He was standing in the direction of my house, blocking the way, so running home wasn't an option. I also was smart enough not to show him where I lived. A few people were walking past, without intervening. My parents never taught me stranger danger, so all I could do was hope someone intervened. A family walked by, going into the house from behind where the man was holding me by my arm. What makes me angry to this day is that no one intervened. Not even the family walking behind me. I kept repeating, "It's fine, really it's fine," over and over, but no one spoke up. My heart was beating fast and I didn't know what to do. I pulled my arm away and started walking to the food place as it was my only option. I didn't look behind me, I just kept walking. When I got to the food place, which took about 5 minutes, I ordered my milkshake and waited for it to be made. I was almost in tears, barely holding it together. The man had followed me all the way to the small food place. He was standing at the open entrance staring at me. I really felt like I was about to be kidnapped. My heart was racing, I was sweating, and I was in shock. I did my best to hide my trembling voice when giving the cashier a thank you, and reluctantly took my milkshake. "Hey, OP," a voice behind me said. I turned around to see my neighbour. She was a woman in her 60s, and was very nice from our select few interactions. I didn't know her that well, but my parents did. She whispered to me, "Is that man following you? Do you want me to walk you home?" Looking back now, she quite possibly saved me from being kidnapped. It even saved my life. The man was scared off at that point and walked away. My neighbour walked me home and asked me a few questions. I answered slowly, trying to gather my thoughts and catch my breath. When we were nearly at my house, my neighbour asked if she should come in with me to tell my parents. I said no, as I was in shock, and I especially didn't want my parents to find out, fearing they would get really mad at me. My parents were home at that point and greeted me as I came inside. I said hello quietly and rushed to my room. I sat on my bed and recounted what happened over and over. Would the neighbour tell my parents anyway? I hesitated for a while, then went up to my mum's room while she was watching TV. I asked if I could tell her something, and she turned off the TV. I was halfway through explaining what happened when I broke down in tears. She got very mad, and I immediately thought telling her was a bad idea. She rushed me downstairs to where my dad and three of my brothers were watching a movie together. My mum explained what happened, and everyone got really mad. My dad was shouting at me, frantically asking questions. After answering, I went to my room and sobbed in my bed before falling asleep. I found out later that my parents went to the police station. My parents explained later that they weren't mad at me, they were mad at my attempt to kidnap her. The situation could have been handled a lot better by everyone looking back. I had to describe to my dad what he looked like, and I went to the police station to give a statement the next day. My neighbour also made a statement. My mum had a therapist come to the house for a day to find out if I'd suffered anything that could cause trauma. Luckily I didn't, but I was afraid to leave my house alone for months. I will always remember that day. They never caught the guy. Maybe he was worried that a 7 to 10 year old was walking without parents and wasn't causing any harm. Looking back, my opinions have changed. I'd like to hear what you all think. I've been living in Prague for about a year. I taught 3rd grade at a bilingual school during the day and worked door security for a tourist bar at night. Weekends I would get off work around 3 or 4 depending on how busy it was, at which point I would take the tram from the city centre to the JCP where my apartment was located. At the time I was 22 years old and had short black hair with round glasses, and this is important. One night I stood at the back of the tram with headphones in despite my phone being dead. They were like a security blanket to prevent me from socialising with drunk English speakers that populated the city centre at that time of night. This group of 7 guys looking to be between 25 to 30 get on being loud and drunk. I'm okay with accents, and these guys were definitely British, probably there for a stag do. I ignore them until I hear this conversation. I'd F that Harry Potter looking girl, like she'd F you, mate. Like, I'd give her a choice, and then raucous laughter and high-fiving all over this little joke. How can you tell that's a girl? One way to find out, isn't there? And then more laughter. I keep staring at my Kindle and acting like I couldn't hear them and I didn't speak English, but internally I was screaming in panic. My stop was only 2 away, and I figured I'd want to be as close to my flat as possible when I got off. So I sit there, ignoring and leering until the tram gets to my stop. I get off. I've got 3 blocks up and half a block over to get to my flat. They get off. That's fine, I live 2 blocks away from a very popular club and quite a few bars and hotels in the area. I rationalised to myself, they're not following me. I had a test, a stupid thing I did to see if people were walking behind me or were following me, and I crossed at weird places in the street, and they crossed too. I pick up my pace to be walking fast but not running. Their pace picks up and laughter emanates from the group behind me. I refuse to look back. I make the 3 blocks with them steadily closing the gap to me. I turn left and bolt, running as fast as I can, keychain with rock in my palm and building key between my thumb and pointer knuckle. I slam the door, and even though it locks automatically and doesn't have a turntable handle, I throw the deadbolt and continue running to my flat, where I also turn the deadbolt. I get to my room, which faces the street, and I curl up in the corner shaking as through my window I can hear, "Where'd that bitch go?" along with other things I'm not going to post. About 15 minutes later I hear them go away. So yeah, you group of British boys, I won't even call you men, let's not meet. Edit. Thank you for the responses. Unfortunately, this isn't my only unfortunate story of this nature. I appreciate all the people standing by me. was on a date in Camden with a girl who, from photos, I wasn't overly excited about, but in the flesh made my eyebrows shoot off my head. She was really pretty and smart and funny. We had quite a few cocktails, and I think it was the Blues Kitchen, before going to the gay bar in Camden, which had since closed down. I think it was called the Black Cap. The day was going well, and we meet these people who join in our table, and the guy tells me at the bar my date said she wanted me to kiss her. I did, and it turned out the guy was just helping us out by moving things along. My date was really shocked and told me it was bold, but she liked it. She came back to my hotel room with me, which was like a 10-minute walk away. The room was kind of small but cool, with a space-age sort of style to it. We were both drunk and made out a lot. She started crying about problems she was having with a friend who was really sick and her job that was really stressful, full on sobbing. She left in embarrassment, even though I wasn't worried about her leaving like that, but she said she'd be okay. As she left, I saw a large man in a black thick leather jacket in the corridor. He was staring at my date as she left, and then stared at me as I closed the door. I was pretty wasted, so after checking my date got on a bus, I had a nap and was woken by banging on the door. I ignored it, but then it just kept going, so I staggered up to the door and opened it a crack. I recognised the leather elbow and arm as the door was shoved open violently. I was drunk, and the jolt of the door caused me to fall over. Luckily, the room entrance was small and around the width of the door, so my back was against the wall by the door, whilst my feet touched the other wall. My body kept the door closed as this man kept shoving against the door. I managed to get it closed again, locked it, and went to sleep as I was still drunk. When I woke up in the morning, I thought I'd dreamt the man at the door, but when I looked up and down the side of my ribs, my hips and my thigh, I had dark bruises. I was really lucky, and I'm so glad that my room was tight on space, because if it hadn't, that guy would have got in so easily. Sorry for the long story, but I can't figure out this person's motive. One night I was in bed with my boyfriend. It was about 1:30 AM. I get a text from a random number saying, "Is this?" and then my name. Sorry for messaging late and out of the blue like this, but I don't think then saying my boyfriend's name is being honest, and I need to talk to you. We exchanged a few texts, and basically they were accusing my boyfriend of cheating on the both of us. Obviously I was annoyed, but bear in mind it was June 2020, bang in the middle of coronavirus lockdown in the UK. We'd spent every day together since March. He denied it all and insisted he didn't know who this person was. The same number starts texting him, angry text, calling him a lying rat, not looking good for a boyfriend. But this is where it gets weird. This person gives no specifics. They won't tell me their name, what my boyfriend has done, only that he is a liar and that I was an idiot for believing him. I'd ask, but they would just reply with vague, angry texts. Their grammar and spelling was good, but they'd use slang words from our local area. We assumed it was just some kid who found our numbers off Facebook and were having a laugh, so we just ignored it. Then nothing, until my boyfriend gets a text the following afternoon asking him to meet at the local social club for some company. Me and my friend got straight in the car and went down there. No one was there. The club was closed because of COVID, but we couldn't help but feel like we was being watched. It was really weird. A few days go by and the same number starts texting me again. This time the text language is weird. It's like spelling mistakes and saying stuff like "why you too" instead of "you too," that kind of thing. It felt like it was a different person texting me. They seemed a lot angry with me now because I didn't believe them straight away. Then they text me, "You're so dull. I see him leaving your house earlier, LMAO." Cocky, I said something funny like, "Where's my house then?" And then they replied with my street name. They also know things about us, like the fact that he was in the army, but I guess you can figure that out from social media photos. I called them loads, but it would just ring twice and cut off. I tried switching the number on WhatsApp and on a few social medias. Nothing. Only on Instagram, the number would come up with a location of a film company in Rattle, Netherlands. When I googled the number, its provider is Tisme. I have never heard of it, but it looks like it might be a fake number. Never asked for any money or anything like that. Don't get why someone go through so much effort just to wind us up. Last text I had was, "Okay, you'll see eventually, LMAO." Creepy. Any advice, please? I moved a lot growing up. By the time freshman year of high school came around, I'd moved 7 times or so, and was about a year and a half into my most recent move. I had a pretty close group of friends in middle school, and we all went to high school together. I met him through one of those close friends. We were in band together, and even though he was almost 4 years older than us, we welcomed him into our group. Sam was easily twice my size, tall and heavy set, and originally kind of intimidating, although I was never afraid of large men before him. Lesson learned. I kind of had a bad home life. I spent as much time as I could at school, sometimes hanging around the school campus until 6 or 7 at night with a friend group. 3 of us lived in the same direction, and we would walk the half-hour trip together until our paths split. One slightly colder evening, Sam offered to walk me home since the others had already gone home. I just thought he was being a gentleman. He mentioned something from a previous move when he lived in California. He didn't walk a friend home and something horrible happened. He left it at that, and I let him walk me home. We got a lot closer after that. We bonded over living in California and exchanged numbers. He would message me late into the night about his depression and self-harm, and I wanted to help. A few months later, he tried asking me out. It was this big romantic gesture. He learned a Disney song and the ukulele and sang it to me in the cafeteria. But I was already dating someone, and when I turned him down, he got angry. A freaky, quiet, twitchy kind of angry. I felt so bad. I started seeing him everywhere. We were still friends, we still hang out in groups, but I would pass him on the street, walking somewhere, and a few minutes later, I'd see that he changed direction and had started to follow me. He would walk me to classes by following me in the passing period at a distance. I started to minimise the group time we spent together, and he would follow me more. I had friends meet me at each class and walk me to my next one because I felt unsafe. He knew where I lived. Then he started to talk, not to me, but to mutual friends about one girl in California who he tried to walk home. At first, she just shared my name, some crazy coincidence. Then she had the same brown curly hair and blue eyes, and every time he rambled about her, she became more and more like me. And then he said what happened. Over literal weeks, this fantasy evolved. They were walking home, and they were jumped by some guy with a knife. It was a robbery gone wrong on her birthday, January 24th, my birthday, and she died horribly and couldn't react in time. She bled out on his arms. Sarah, who had brown curly hair, blue eyes and my name, my birthday, and sounds just like me, bled out in his arms. Each retelling added more and more detail, and the guy with his sick fantasy about my death would follow me around and knew where I lived. My boyfriend was abusive, mentally and physically, but I stayed as close to him when I could, whenever I could, because if the worst happened, I knew for sure he could throw a punch. I never felt safe at school or in our little town, walking from home in the dark. One day, at school, he had a breakdown, freaked out and ran out of the school in a panic. I was sent after him and found him curled up on the floor. I got closer. I knew about his anxiety and depression, and my safety aside, I wanted to make sure he was okay. It was then that he told me about this horrifying story that I'd been hearing from mutual friends with added details. We had been walking home from a concert in California. We passed a dark alley and a homeless man came out with a rusty knife and asked for anything valuable. I fumbled for my phone. I didn't have anything else on me, and he thought I was calling the cops. He stabbed me. Once, twice, and again. Sam stood there, horrified. He saw red and grabbed a broken glass bottle near my body and attacked some homeless man. He killed him with his own knife. He told me he killed someone. My stalker had killed someone. It didn't matter how messed up he was anymore. I didn't care if it was fantasy or real. I didn't care how it would affect his mental health anymore. I wanted to go to the police. I was scared for my life. My friends convinced me to go to the school counsellor first. That morning, we went and told him everything. The stalking, the stories, how he admitted to murder and that he was the reason they moved from California, how I was afraid for my life and wanted to call the police. My counsellor didn't take us seriously. She went to the principal, and the principal, not mental health expert, called Sam in to talk about the accusations. The principal then informed me that he didn't think that Sam had any kind of mental illness and that I wasn't in any danger. And that was that. I lost faith in adults, gave up on going to the police, stayed with my friends walking me between classes, hiding behind my abusive boyfriend, and looking behind me every step of my walk home that year. The counsellors ended up gaslighting us to the point where it feels like a fever dream now. And I would think it's made up if it weren't for my journal entries recording the events and my growing panic, and the similar stories from my friend group. Just for some clarification, I don't think anyone actually died in California. I think he's a pathological liar, and that he was so deep in a fantasy that he convinced himself it was real. No, I wasn't physically hurt, but it was emotionally scarring, and the threat that he posed to me was 100% real. Hello, I'm French, so I apologise in advance if I make any mistakes. As I said, I live in France, and this story happened to me this summer, just after the lockdown ended. I was and am still 19. After this lockdown ended, I went to my grandparents to spend a few weeks. I got tested before, and no problem there. My grandparents live in a small city in the north of France, and they have a dog who's quite big. When I was really young, I lived at my grandparents for a year, and at the time, the dog was only a puppy. Her name was Chippy, in French, which kinda means little devil in English, but in an affectionate way. Considering when I was living there, I played with her a lot. We were both really close, and this will have its importance later. Two of my hobbies are having long walks and running. Thus, every evening, I was going out for a long walk with the dog. There's a track that follows a path through the forest, then there's a small hill, and on top of that, a big place with lots of fields. I run there a lot and I know the place. The air's fresh and the view's quite beautiful. So I was going there with the dog every day. It was also helping my grandparents to have her doing lots of exercise. The first time we went there, nothing special happened. We just enjoyed our walk. It's about 6 or 7 kilometers, so basically an hour walk. The next day, when we arrived on top of the hill, in a field, it was probably around 10 PM, but there was some light because it's summer. There were 3 other people walking in the field. They were younger than me, probably 15 or 16. I also noticed they were smoking, so my guess is that they used to come here so they couldn't be seen by their parents. We went past them, and I greeted them, and they greeted back. Once again, nothing special there. For a whole week, I did this walk around the same time, 10 PM, and passed those 3 guys with nothing special happening, and it was perfectly fine to me this way. My second week, as I usually went for a walk with the dog Chippy, and arrived at the fields, there was only one of the 3 boys. He wasn't smoking this time though. When he saw me, I was at the entrance of this field just after the little hill climb, so the entrance of the forest was just behind me. He did a sign with his hand to catch my attention and asked if I had a lighter, which I actually had in my pocket. I told him, yeah, sure. So he walked to me, hands in the pockets of his hoodie. When he came near me, for some reason I felt a shiver. It's crazy how sometimes your instincts know there's a problem, but you don't listen to it because nothing looks weird to you. I handed over the lighter when he passed by. At that moment, my dog was staring at him. Then everything happened really fast. He did a really fast movement with his hand, coming from the hoodie, and I only saw something shining. I just had a reflex of throwing myself back, so hard that I fell down actually, and I then realised it was a knife that he was holding and he tried to stab me. What saved me is my dog, God bless her. When she saw the guy trying to stab me, she jumped up on him and he fell down. As I said before, he's a really big dog. I immediately got up on my feet and heard something from behind me, from the entrance of the forest. I saw 2 guys wearing animal masks running to me. They were probably the true friends. In this kind of situation, your brain just acts for itself. You don't really think at all. It's just a case of the answer was found and it was really simple. The other guy was still on the ground. I just watched my dog and told her, run. I started running and she followed me. But I heard the worst possible thing from the guy who got up. We'll catch him. Don't let him go. At this moment, I was totally terrified. I was just running and running, and I was hearing them running behind me. I was only thinking, how long are they going to follow me, and who the hell are they? This was the time I was really happy to be a runner. I was clearly better than those guys, and that totally saved me, because they chased me for something that felt like an eternity to me. Fortunately, at the end of the field, there's another entrance to the forest, and this time it's a descent to the end of the road. I heard the steps of the three guys vanishing as I arrived at the end of the forest, though I didn't stop running until I arrived at my grandparents' house and locked myself in. I caught a massive breath and gave her a huge hug. I saw in her eyes that she totally understood what happened, and I've never been so happy to have her in my life. After that, I told everything to my grandparents, and we called the police, but they didn't find anyone. I really don't know what these guys wanted, but the animal masks make it seem like it was some kind of satanic ritual. I really don't want to know anyway. I still do long walks with Chippy, the hero dog, but I now go earlier, into places with a little more people. I hope you enjoyed my story. Again, I apologise if it is a bit all over the place. I'm French and my English isn't great. And to the three guys in the forest, let's never meet again. Hey folks, I'm kind of new, and this is my first story I've submitted here, so let's get started. I must clarify, this didn't happen to only me, but my uncle too. This was after a Christmas Eve party, and when everyone went home. I decided to stay, because my cousin and I were watching a movie. My uncle, who used to walk his dogs in the woods next to a park, went off to take them out. Before this, my aunt told him not to do that, because it was too dark out there. It was around 4 or 5 a.m. He didn't care much, and he went off anyway. My aunt was still worried, so I went along with him. Everything was quiet. My uncle and his dogs were having a relaxing walk as usual, and I wasn't really paying attention to the surroundings, when suddenly the dogs went still. This wasn't that strange. They always stopped in their way to stare or bark at other animals, like rats or birds or insects or other dogs. However, this time it was different. When the dogs went still, my uncle and I noticed something was going wrong. The dogs weren't angry or curious, they were kind of nervous, anxious and afraid. One of the dogs, the largest one, was growling and shaking. As my uncle started to get worried about the situation, we heard it. People in the woods. We didn't see how many because of the darkness. They were saying something.
We all gather here by the blood of...
Then we couldn't understand.
Then
we couldn't understand again.
Thee and I.
And then we couldn't understand again. As my uncle and I heard that, he yelled for his dogs to follow him out of the woods. As we all left, he turned his head back and he only saw the slight movement of the branches and shrubs. Perhaps because these people were trying to hide. After all that happened, he hasn't walked his dogs near those woods, nor will he do it again when it's dark. So to the strangers in the woods, let's never meet again. Hello everyone, this is the end of this week's episode. As you know by now, this is the part where I just ramble, so there's no more stories at this point. I haven't really been able to record recently. I've had a lot of stuff to do, but it's really nice to actually get to this point so I can actually talk to you guys normally. This has actually become a regular thing, and I think a lot of you actually like listening to it. So yeah, no more stories from this point. I'm going to give you guys some updates on my life, basically. So recently, I'm going to try and word it well. I've always been I don't know if highly strung is the right word. I don't know. I'm very anxious about things. I always worry about things and overstress things, but I always thought it was normal. I remember when I was younger, even to this day, if I went to play a football match, and I played football for a decent level, and I want to play football again at a decent level, but I got injured. But I would always be so anxious before I played games, and people would go, "Oh yeah, nerves are normal," but it always annoyed me because I was thinking to myself how anxious I feel isn't normal. I'd get really flustered, and my face and head would be hot and everything, and get headaches, and it'd drain me for the day. And it's you're sort of beaten before you've even started. And it's not just football, it's normal situations, if I was meeting a girlfriend's family and stuff, to the point where it's almost I'd need to avoid that situation. But I never thought anything of it. I thought I was just a bit of an anxious person until recently. I've I started my uni course and I had to do a presentation. I've never liked presentations, never, like, but like I've had to do a few online this year, and I've got through mostly got through them pretty well. Like, you know, it's like you don't like doing it, but you get through it. But the last couple I've had to do, I'd have it where, like, for no reason, like a switch, it's like my heart starts beating really fast. I can't concentrate. It's like I want to just leave, and it's like this has happened to me in interviews too. And I was thinking maybe I'm just really nervous. But when it happened recently, and I couldn't actually think of what I needed to say or get out what I needed to say, and it's like I was really shaking. It's like, why is this happening? I'm not nervous to talk in front of these people. I'm not nervous for what I'm talking about. I'm not nervous to talk to any of these people. I was like, why is this happening? And I looked it up online. From what I've seen, it's an anxiety attack, which I didn't even know. I knew they were a thing, but I didn't know what it consisted of. And that's how I think this is what I've been having, like, over the years, and not actually knowing about it, like what it is. So I've gone to my GP and I've some like therapy thing because I really want to get it sorted out. I don't want this to affect my life because it's to the point where it's like I wouldn't want to join sports teams that I want to join. I wouldn't want to do certain things or put myself in certain situations because of it. And I want to do things like these presentations because I've done them this year and I've got through them, but I only realised recently this is what's been happening to me, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not something I actually I even considered would be something I would have a problem with, but it's got to the point where it is a problem with me now. So I'm really trying to sort of get it sorted. Really, I don't know. It's really weird because like normal social situations, like I'm okay with, I can deal with it. I'm not like completely anxious all the time. I can't go to the shop sort of thing or meet people and my friends and that. It's not that. It's the fact that even if I have to go and meet, say if I was meeting my girlfriend's friends or something, I would be, normally that's like an uncomfortable situation for most people, but for me it's like I dread it, absolutely dread it. It's like constant anxiety and it builds up in my head and I get like OCD and stuff, and it's really, I don't know, it's really annoying. It's really, really annoying. I've only realised recently that it's not normal at 24. So I'm trying to get it fixed. I really want to get it fixed. I don't want to be constantly anxious about things, and like I always worry about the future. Like I constantly worry about things, like the irrational things, and it's really, really annoying. And it's only now that I'm actually getting help for it. Like I've spoke to the therapy people about a week ago, and they're gonna give me some sort of like provisional diagnosis and like give it to my GP. Honestly, my GP is absolutely useless. That's the thing that doesn't help either. Like my GPs are notorious for being crap. Like I want to move, but it's so difficult where I live to move GPs. They like, just an example, like they've misdiagnosed things, like they've missed cancers, and it's like, but like just not through like lack of not knowledge, just through it's like neglect. Like they won't send you for a scan. It's like they'll do anything. They've told my brother, who usually you guys might know, like this is like a few years ago, being like a chest infection or something like that, and they told him to have fucking chicken soup. So what are you on about? I've been there before, and they've Googled my symptoms. They've Googled it and gone, oh, this is what you've got. It's like, you've just gone on fucking Google. This is what I did before I come in. Honestly, it winds me up, but I've got no hope with my GP at the minute, but I'm going to keep pestering them. I'm going to go back to them because I need to get it sorted. I said to them even recently, like when I said, like, is there any sort of like medication I can be on temporarily just so I can get through the things I need to get through, because I've got a lot of stuff coming up. And there was like, well, we don't like giving medication to young people. It's like, how does age have any difference? How does it make a difference? If it's affecting me, it's affecting me. Age shouldn't come into it. I even said to them, I don't want to be on medication. It's something I think would help me. And didn't even offer therapy or anything. I've had to self-refer, and it's a nightmare. They're an absolute nightmare. But I'm getting somewhere now. It was frustrating at first, but I'm sort of getting somewhere now. I don't want you guys to think I'm like some bag of nerves walking around everywhere, because it's not the case. It's normal things I don't have this with. It's not like it's going to ruin my life, but it's going to stop me from doing things, certain situations I want to be in and want to deal with. I can't deal with how I need to, if you know what I mean. So I need it sorted. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. But I also want to say, like, if any of you guys are like struggling with it, then it's always best to go get it looked at. Like, I was always sort of person, I always thought, no, I don't need any help with it. But like, now it's gotten to the point where it's like, I should have dealt with this years ago. This is something that... Sorry, I just had to go quickly, but I'm back. This is something that I should have dealt with absolutely years ago, and I should have known the signs. Like, I'm quite introspective, I think. Like, I'm not the sort of person that... I'm not a very shallow person. I do think a lot. I really think into things. I don't know. I overthink things, if anything. And it's like, I should have known this is what I have. I'm a bit annoyed at myself in some ways. I've let this go on for so long and affect me in so many different ways in my life. It's like, in my head, I think I've just built up like safety sort of mechanisms to like get through things. I mean, I'll find out when I do the therapy stuff, won't I, really? But I think that's probably what's been happening. I don't know. It's just so annoying, and I wish I taught that earlier, but I suppose at least I'm doing it now, which is the main thing. I just want this to be something that I can move past and deal with, because I mean, I've dealt with these things before, but the mental toll it takes on me to get through it, it just wipes me out for the day, and it shouldn't be the case with like these silly little things. So that's the plan. In my head, I'm just telling myself, I've dealt with it before, I can get through it now, I can do it again. So, and in a better way with the therapy. So that's what I'm planning on anyway. Anyway, on a lighter mood, it was got a bit dark, didn't it? But what else has been going on? Oh, I've said this loads of times, right? I've not got a load of money, but I like investing in things. Like, if I've got like a bit of money, I like putting it into something that I think might go up in value, because I don't do much. Like, all the things I enjoy, like I like playing football, I like going to the gym, I like jogging. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't cost a lot of money to do these things. It's not an expensive hobby that I've got. But I like collecting things too. Like, I've got like some dinosaur fossils, which I sometimes invest in. But I've got I bought some Pokemon stuff. I know what you're probably thinking, oh, here we go. But I bought tell me if you guys know about Pokemon, tell me what you guys think. I got a jungle booster pack with, I don't know the name of it. It's like a little, I don't know, it's got Wiggly Tough or something weird like that it's called. It's on the front of it, and it was quite heavy. Like, it was a heavier pack. Obviously it's got the holographic inside, hopefully. That's what I'm thinking, but I'm not going to open it. I also bought a 2016 XY Charizard. Is PSA 8. So if you guys know what that, like, if that's a decent like thing to invest in, so it's not like I've spent a fortune, but like, I just want to keep it sitting there, just to see if it builds value, because it's not like I've bankrupted myself, do you know what I mean? But I thought it might be a good thing just to have for now, just to invest in. I don't know. I'm interested in a lot of the other things. So if any of you guys know any of the Pokemon things that you should invest in, that I'm not saying I want to make like quick turnover on money. If I keep it for 10 years, will it go up in value? I'm thinking more of like the shadowless Pikachu stuff and all that. But anyway, a lot of you probably think what you want on about. Shut up. But yeah. Also, do you know what annoys me? When people like proper talk down to people, like when they invest in things, say if it's Pokemon, they go, or anything, they'll go, oh yeah, but if you're just doing it for the money, you don't do it because you love it. It's like, so? I'm not passionate about Pokemon. I just like collecting things. I'll buy them and frisbee the cunts at the wall if that's what I want to do. If that's what I enjoy doing, I'll do it. I don't know, it winds me up. People are proper entitled, like, oh, you got to have a deep passion for the old Wigglytuff. It's like, I don't though, do I? But I still want it. Just because I want it doesn't make it any less than them wanting it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I can't get across my points at the minute. Like, their reasons are not more valid than anyone else's reason just because that's what they like. Do you know what I mean? If someone bought a Lionel Messi signed shirt and they don't like football, but I love football and I love watching Barcelona, it doesn't make it any less valid that they want it more than, like, less than I do just because I enjoy it, like, enjoy watching Messi more. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make it any, like, less valid. I don't know if that's a good way of putting it. But, yeah. What else has been going on? There's two birds outside my window, right? I've been watching them as I've been talking. I don't know what they're doing, but I think they might be shagging. I don't know how birds do it, but I don't know what they're doing. They're doing something weird, and it's like they're following each other around. Well, maybe they're fighting. Yeah, I think they're fighting. Fair enough. They're having a joust. Okay. Anyway, what else is there to talk about? Or maybe you guys can just tell me what you've been doing, because like I've talked about myself a lot now. But yeah, what have you guys been up to recently? Are you guys how are you guys finding the lockdown? Are you guys in a lockdown? Like, what's been going on? I think we're coming out of our lockdown on it's getting lessened on the 29th of March, so a few weeks, which is still a long time, but it'd be nice just to do something, won't it? Even if it's something small, I can't wait until like Nando's and all that's open, and Weatherspoons and like shopping centres. We can just go and do things. Like, it's even like the little things that you can't do at the minute. And I'm not an outgoing person really. I like doing stuff, but I'm not like life and soul of the party sort of person. So I find them people quite annoying actually. But yeah, I don't know. I just even doing something small would be nice, wouldn't it? Do you know what another thing is weird? Have you guys ever looked at the clouds and you've seen something in them? Because people always talk about this, don't they? Like, I'm looking at a cloud now, right? People go, oh yeah, there's a I don't know, Jesus is in the clouds. But I never get anything good that you can describe to other people. From what I'm looking at a cloud right now, right? If anything, I'd say it's a squirrel riding a horse. But that's not something that's just a load of tosh, isn't it? That's not anything good. I don't know. Like, people say really good things like, I don't know, Gandhi. But I'm seeing a squirrel riding a horse. I don't know. It's just not as good, is it? I can't take a picture of that and put that on like Instagram, can I? And say, oh, look at this. This is beautiful. It must be a message. Clearly isn't. I don't know. Alright, I'm going to stop waffling on. Alright. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.